match and then Jack State this weekend, and then we'll go to questions.
Yeah, busy time. Busy week last week. I think you saw all the goods and the bads of Western Kentucky volleyball all wrapped up in 1 week. We were really disappointed in, the way we did some things against Vandy in that loss, but, came back as is with young kids. They have short memories, and, we had a really good couple days of practice where we took a hard look at ourselves and came back and had a really special weekend with, the Big Ten win over Indiana, who is a terrific team, undefeated up to that point, and is going to be a tournament team, no doubt, moving forward. And so a really important win, not just a good win, but a really important win for our resume. But then, we just can't seem to stay even keeled with it all. Obviously, the injury to Kyra right at the end of that match was emotional, another turn in our season, and has us scrambling a little bit lineup-wise, heading into, a really, really big matchup against Louisville on the road at the Yum Center. But it's also, as we know, and this is the most important part to me, if I'm being bluntly honest with you, it's the opening of conference play. And although I know there'll be a lot of eyes on what goes on tonight, and we'll certainly put our best foot forward there. To be honest, my focus is on the beginning of conference play and making sure that that we're the best version of ourselves come Friday.
When you look at this new lineup you're working with, what are some positives that you've been seeing so far? I know it's still very fresh, but what have you seen so far?
Well, can I tell you, Can I answer that as I'm not sure, because we have not had practice since the injury occurred. That injury happened on, what was that, Friday night? And we had to play Saturday. We literally went back to our practice gym Saturday morning and just walked through it for about 10 minutes and said, let's go play. And then yesterday is the mandatory NCAA day off. And so we didn't practice yesterday. And so we literally are going to play a top 5 team in the country with a lineup that we drew up in the dirt a little bit, if you will. And, so we're just having to do it on the fly, and we're dealing with injuries, and obviously Kyra's injury is significant, but Izzy Vanderwheely's finally starting to get back from her ankle injury, and she suffered a ab strain this weekend, which is one of the worst injuries you can have in the sport of volleyball, and so we don't know what her status will be tonight either. And so if she happens to not be ready to go tonight, I may be looking for one of you guys to grab a uniform, because it's just an extraordinary set of circumstances that we've been dealing with, and to be sitting 9-3 is a pretty resilient group, in my opinion.
Do you have official diagnosis yet on Kyra, or is that something you smell?
No, we do. X-rays were negative, thank goodness. They've ruled out all of the bad stuff, if you will, and so she's definitely out for tonight, and it's probably, at the beginning when you saw it, when she first pulled that shoe off, you're wondering, if there's a fracture, but luckily there was no fracture or anything like that. And so, first we were worried, we were thinking months. Now it looks like it'll be weeks. How many weeks? It's just a pretty severe sprain. And so it really is just about getting the swelling out, getting the range of motion back, and, that could take, everybody heals a little different in that regard. I think my guess is that's everywhere from, 2 weeks to maybe 4 or 5, depending on, but it is definitely a more severe injury than the other 3 ankle injuries that we've already had this season. This one's a little bit more severe, and will take a little bit more time for her to come back from.
You talked about trying to get to the best version of yourself, particularly when you get to conference. It's kind of hard to get to the best version of yourself when you keep having to show.
It is. When you're young, what you need is time together, to gel and do all those kinds of things. And it's just not the hand we were dealt this year. And so we're certainly not able to lean into that part of it. The other thing that I've been preaching about our team all year is that we have great talent from top to bottom and great depth, and that certainly is being put to the test. And I think that's what we're leaning into right now. The kids that we're putting out there are still kids that can really play, but we're kind of getting into that territory now where you're starting to put players out there in positions that they're not normally in. And that adds a whole nother layer of confusion and disruption, and it's hard to have any kind of flow when you're doing those things. And so, but our kids have been incredibly resilient, throughout all of this. And but boy, it's sure, when you look up and see that we're 9-3 with a top 25 win over Dayton and an incredibly good win over Indiana, I think our resume is fantastic in our non-conference portion of our schedule. And you just wish we could get everybody back out there healthy, because it's really incredible what would be possible, with this group. And obviously it's bad timing to be playing Louisville in terms of the health of our team. But at the same time, this is a match that can't hurt us in any way. You play matches like this and it only solidifies you RPI wise. And but it'll be, we have a ton of alumni in Louisville. It'll be a special environment in the Yum Center. And regardless of what lineup we put out there, I think we'll be excited to play, and we'll play really, really hard. But it'll be a tall task, against a team of that quality.
As far as tonight goes, with the young group, the injuries you're battling, do you take anything from getting these girls some meaningful experience against a competitive opponent like that?
Yeah, I'm to be honest, I think that's what tonight is going to be about. We're not going to out X&O Louisville tonight, and we're not going to out talent Louisville tonight, and so what I'm looking for is just a level of competitive nature, about our team, because I've been saying this to you guys all year. We've got a really good team. We're talented and we're complete, and we can do a lot of things, but obviously, a lot of those things are hampered right now with where we are lineup-wise, but none of that stuff should steal your competitiveness. And so, I don't know, it's pretty rare that Western Kentucky volleyball gets to go out and play a volleyball match where the weight of it's not on our shoulders, if that makes sense. We're in a position where most nights the pressure's on us to go do what everybody thinks we're going to do. And this is one of those really rare times where if I can't imagine a player in our locker room would have be feeling a lot of pressure on themselves tonight. This is one where maybe we can just use the fact that we can go out there and let it fly and be aggressive, and play a little bit carefree, and maybe even work on some things, depending on how the flow of the match is going. Maybe there's some things we can look at in live situations here to see if this is going to be the lineup we're with for a couple weeks, see what's working, what's not working. But, I don't think any coach would tell you that ideally you want to be experimenting against one of the top 5 teams in the country. But, at the same time, it's the next job at hand, and I know our players will be excited about playing.
Kind of touched on it a little bit, but with the conference now starting up this weekend, injuries and shuffling aside, you got to feel like you're in a good position going into the...
Yeah, we do. Obviously, other than the injury stuff, I think we've certainly put our team to the test. I mean, we've played an incredible schedule. Sometimes when I look and see that we're 9-3, I'm like, wow, how did that happen? Again, in preseason, if you would have said, hey, you're going to have 5 injuries in the first 4 weeks, including your All-American setter and, potentially the freshman of the year in the league and, an all-conference middle. We haven't lost reserve players here. And then we play the schedule that we've played. I would have probably taken 9-3 really quickly. And so it is, and we are, our non-conference schedule did what we wanted it to do. We've put ourselves to the test. We've learned a lot about ourselves. We've been exposed. And now, it's about getting focused. The big challenge, again, turns, as always, is the challenge for us, is to be locked in every single night. Now it turns into starting Friday night where everybody's Super Bowl, right? The rest of the year in Conference USA. And, hopefully our young team understands that whatever they see on film, when they walk out on the court, that team's going to be even a better version of themselves because you're wearing that Western Kentucky across your chest. And, so it's time to transition into that. And I'm looking forward to be honest, I'm looking forward to having one opponent a week for a while, and just being able to prepare for one and getting back in the gym and being able to practice some. Tonight is our 5th match in 8 days. I think. So it's been a long stretch, but I'm proud of where we are.
And when you shift from that mode of having those midweeks and now, like you said, conference play, just Friday, Saturday matches, and shifting from that go survival mode, what is that going to do for you all and the team to get more time in the gym that you guys?
Yeah, hopefully it'll allow us to get healthy, first and foremost. But then, again, we know a lot more about ourselves now, and so hopefully we can get in and start fine-tuning some things. But the practice time is going to be critical. And like I said, I don't think people realize how disruptive a midweek match is. You think, well, it's only one day. But when you play a Tuesday night match, Monday you go light because you're playing Tuesday. Wednesday you're coming off of playing, and that's an emotional drain. So you go really light on Wednesday, and then Thursday's the day before you're playing 2 matches again. So you're literally getting no quality practice time in. Whereas in a normal week, you take Sunday off, you've got a quality practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 3 in a row. You go light on Thursday, and then you're ready for your weekend. And so I'm very ready to fall into that routine with our young team, and we know a lot more about ourselves. And so hopefully we can hang in there for the next couple weeks without Kyra, because it is a huge, you see the impact that Kyra has on our team, and these losses are significant. You see the impact that having Izzy on the court versus not having her on the court is, and those are things that we've dealt with in a pretty good way, but it's certainly going to be a challenge for the next few weeks as well.
I know you've got Louisville tonight, but what have you seen from Kennesaw?
You mean Jack State?
Jack State.
Yeah, similar team as a year ago. They're a little bit undersized. They've got a kid named Kayla Williams who is a tremendous athlete that just flies and plays fearlessly, and so she's somebody that you just can't let take over a game. She can't have a night like Kyra Knox had against Indiana where she's hanging up 25 kills on somebody. And then we've been able to score against them. They're not as big and physical as a lot of the teams that we've played, but it'll be a challenge. The thing that about Jacksonville State every year for me is I have such fondness and respect for Dex, their head coach. He's a friend of mine, and has been an elite level coach that developed a Sanford program into a perennial NCAA tournament team. And so I know what he's doing in his gym, and I know he comes from winning stuff, and so they will always have my respect as long as he's at the helm of their program.
With the start of conference play, we talk about this every year. You guys have not lost a regular season conference matchup in quite some time now. Can you talk more about the target that might be on your back with those matchups?
Yeah, it is. It's more of a target. When you step back and look at it, it's obvious that there's a target on our back. We've won 90, I don't know how many matches in a row, 92, something like that in a row in conference play. And so without question, that's a topic of conversation every week. I understand that. I understand that teams coming in, that adds the significance to them coming in when they play us. But I've said this before, and I say it again, it's never a topic in our gym. And I have always looked at it, and last year, the year before, like if this was professional sports, maybe, where you had the same team year after year or had the potential to have the same team, then to me that has significance. But this is, 6, 7 of these kids are brand new kids to our program. They have nothing to do with that streak. And so our streak is 0 in a row with the 2025 team, and we're going to try to get to 2 this weekend if we can. And, at some point that streak's going to end, and when it does, I'm sure I'll get a few more questions about it when it does, but you'll have to remind me how many it was at that point, because it really, truly has no significance to me, because, you play 12 to 16 conference games a year, and you're trying to see how many of those you can win every year. And one year to the next, to me, doesn't seem to make much sense because of the differences on our side of the net, the differences on the other side of the net. But without question, you have to understand that it probably means something to the teams walking in. It probably means something to the crowds on the road when we walk in. And I understand that piece of it, but from our end of it, I doubt it even comes up.
With that being said, is there excitement within the team to get this conference slate started? Can you feel that in the locker room?
Not yet. To be honest, that's what I'm going to start trying to create today. We're going to talk a lot about Louisville. This is going to be an exciting matchup, all that kind of stuff, but this is the Monday of conference play. opening conference play. And, you know, we will be talking about Jacksonville State this weekend today. And we will be starting to try to get their minds in a place. You know, we always talk about our season is broken into 3 smaller seasons. There's the non-conference season, there's the conference season, and then there's postseason. And today is starting, you know, Tyson, who you'll have in here in a minute, it's always game week, right? And they start on Monday getting ready for that weekend's matches. And this is game week when it starts this is our second phase. We put the first one to bed tonight. And then that second phase starts immediately, and I'll be in film on the way back from Louisville of Jackson. Actually, I already am, if I'm being honest with you, on Jacksonville State. And it's really important that our players get their mind right because, you know, what we've done in the non-conference schedule, regardless of what happens tonight, I think is worthy of what we wanted it to be. Our non-conference schedule, we're always trying to put a tough schedule together, build a resume that gives us a chance RPI-wise. How could you not check the box with what our team's accomplished regardless of what happens tonight? And so now it's time to move to that next phase and try to win a regular season championship.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Because I swear, in my head, I see